This is Max. Max is pretty dumb at the moment, but the point of this video is to see if we can train him to become smarter. And what better way to test this theory than to have him try to survive a meteor strike? Why a meteor strike? Because I think it would first of all look cool and be fun to try to code, as well as it would give Max a real test in terms of survivability and intelligence. Let's start by coding up the meteor strike simulation. We'll have meteors fall from the sky, and if they hit Max, he will die. I'll add a particle effect to make it seem as if the meteors are exploding on impact. Okay, so they're just gray balls right now, but at least it looks like the particles are working. Oh, and the collisions seem to be good as well. We can change the speed of simulation with the slider in the bottom left, as well as restart the simulation with the spacebar. This is oddly satisfying. Anyways, we need to give Max the ability to move. I'll allow him to move left, right, or stay in place. For now, we'll select these movements randomly. And there we go. Max can now move. Although, it's just random at the moment. We'll get to that later. First, I need to fix these ugly meteors because they look like shit. Much better. The particles on impact are still gray though. Let me fix that. And there we go. Looks like our simulation is good to go. The next thing we need to do is render a bunch of Maxes on the screen. Since we are going to be using a generational AI algorithm, we'll need to have multiple batches of Maxes surviving the simulation at the same time. Damn, it's even more satisfying when there are multiple of them. When all the Maxes in a generation die, I'll make it so that the simulation restarts automatically. This will be useful when we get to actually training the AI. So now, let's finally discuss the AI. We're going to use something called NEAT, which is basically an algorithm that evolves neural networks the same way nature evolves life. Each Max has a small neural network, basically a tiny brain. It takes in a few pieces of data every frame, its own X position, and details about the nearest meteors, like how far away they are, how fast they're falling, how big they are, and where they'll land. All of that becomes the inputs to the network. Those numbers get passed through layers of simulated neurons, and the network spits out 3 outputs, values that represent how strongly it wants to move left, move right, or stay still. Max simply picks whichever output is highest and acts on it. At first, all of these networks are random. Each Max just stumbles around and dies quickly. But after each round, the algorithm steps in. It keeps the best performing brains, combines parts of them, and randomly mutates their connections. Some get better by luck, others by design. But generation after generation, they evolve. They learn when to move, when to wait, and how to weave through danger. Not because anyone programmed them to, but because evolution rewards the survivors. Now that you understand how Max learns, let's see how he does. We can see that in the beginning, they're still pretty dumb. Most are just moving randomly or standing still and dying very quickly. Let's see what happens if we move forward a few generations. Generation 49. They're still not the brightest, but we are starting to see some movements that don't seem completely random. Let's fast forward again. Generation 200. They've passed the 1,000 mark and are now somewhat trying to dodge the meteors. Still a lot of learning to go through. By the way, I've programmed more meteors to fall as Max survives longer, so it gets exponentially more difficult. Let's see if Max can surpass a score of 2,000. Generation 300. So they seem to be moving somewhat intelligently. I might have spoken too soon. They've still got a lot to learn. Generation 361. They're starting to figure it out. This is actually quite an impressive run, but there are now a lot more asteroids falling from the sky. That was actually quite good. We can actually see the progress they're making. Let's allow them to keep learning a little longer and see how smart they can get. Generation 561. Let's see how well they do. So far, so good. We still have around 75% alive at around 1,000. Their movements are becoming extremely precise, and they're starting to slip through very tight gaps. I think it would even be hard for a human to navigate some of those gaps. There are so many meteors, but Max is doing so well. He's past 2,000. He's got a new high score. My screen is starting to lag because of the number of meteors on the screen. Holy shit! 2,400 is a very good score. It's crazy that we went from this to this, which truly shows the AI's ability to learn. Thank you for making it to the end. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to see more of Max in the future. See you in the next one.